My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you're here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Where I'm from, there are kind of two categories of people, broadly speaking. I'm generalizing here, but I think you'll get the picture. There are what we call townies, and there are what we call culchies. So broadly speaking, that means people who are from the town, who have grown up in a kind of an urban setting and who are more comfortable in that kind of way of life, and people who are from the countryside, who are much more attuned to the rhythm of ordinary country life and possibly even from an agricultural background. That's to say that really, if you go in the past, maybe a few generations, probably most people were from the country in any case. So it's not that we're that removed as a population from the countryside and for the things of the earth. But let's say that nowadays things have become a little bit more distinct. Well, I'm kind of fortunate in the sense that my mum is a culchie, you could say, by birth. She comes from the country, and so my grandparents lived in the country and had a farm there. So growing up, we tiny children were kind of packaged off to the farm to help out, though I don't really think we were much help. But it was more just for the fun of it, or more just to get a sense of what it is to be on a farm and to have kind of normal family life, but in a different context. So at different times of the year, Easter holidays, during the summer especially, we go down, we spend long time on the farm helping out. And, you know, it was far better than anything we could have been doing at home. To get the fresh air and to be amongst the animals and to spend time with my grandparents, with my cousins, with my aunts and uncles. I really loved it, I have to say. I have such happy memories, and I thank you, Jesus, for those. But there were certainly times whenever it seemed that it was actually useful that we were there, that the city boys would come down and they would help out because there was a lot to be done on the farm at certain times of the year. One thing in particular, which was a task that I kind of looked forward to on one hand and kind of didn't look forward to the other, was preparing for the silage. So whenever they would cut the grass in order to store it up for the cows to eat whenever they go inside during the colder period of the year. So all the grass gets kind of put into this large kind of silo thing, and it's covered with kind of plastic tarpaulin. And to keep it all in place, there are kind of hundreds of car tires. So, and obviously in order to get access to the silage, to be able to get in, you have to take off all of the tires. So that's a kind of a job that you can entrust easily to a townie, because it really doesn't involve any knowledge of farming whatsoever. All you literally have to do is throw tires from one place to the next. So, as I said, perfect job for the townies. But it's hard work, and tires, the way they're kind of shaped, get kind of water, gunk that sits in them for months and months of the year. So you kind of go and you lift the tire and you throw it, and you get covered in the water and all of the rubbish that's inside it. So anyway, it was good fun, but it certainly seemed that it was useful. And whenever there were as a need, all hands on deck, let's say, you feel more of an appreciation for what you're doing. Now, this isn't just me kind of reminiscing about my childhood here, because concretely in the gospel for today, Jesus gives us a beautiful image from the countryside of the harvest. Now, we're told that whenever he's going around the Sea of Galilee and he's preaching in the synagogues and he's healing those who are sick, but he has this real moment of compassion whenever he meets these people who he sees are dejected, like sheep without a shepherd. And he says to the disciples who he has gathered with him, who are with him there in his mission of preaching and healing and doing all of the things in Galilee, the harvest is rich, but the laborers are few. Pray, therefore, to the Lord of the harvest that he would send out workers into his harvest. Now, you might say that this is kind of a funny metaphor to use whenever you see these people who are like sheep without a shepherd. So we're kind of mixing our farming metaphors here, going from talking about pastoring to talking about harvesting. But it is a great image for what Jesus is really talking about here, which is mission, to go and to gather in all of the crops that God has planted. And whenever you have to harvest, like kind of doing these things on the farm, you need a lot of hands on deck because there's a lot of work to do. So Jesus, this is concretely what you felt whenever you saw these people who had no guide. Maybe in a sense you were overwhelmed by the enormity of the task, that there are so many people who need to be looked after, who need to be shepherded. And you see this, Jesus, before your own eyes. It's not like you're talking about some situation in the far distant future, but concretely you see a need that you know that we need to respond to. A, because we have to pray, and B, because they require a worker to go into the harvest. And since it's your apostles, those disciples who you have gathered around that you're talking to, well, we see ourselves in that role, that we're the disciples who you're talking to today. So, Jesus, when you look at our world today, I don't think it's any different. The harvest is still so great, and yet the workers are still so few. Now, this passage resonates with many when it comes to praying for priestly vocations. And a little bit like my granddad, I suppose, whenever he knew that there was much work to do. Whenever I look at the work that I have to do as a priest, I feel the same as you, Lord, that there is much to do, and that we need all hands on deck. We need all the townies and all the cultures to come together, to pull together in order to come for the harvest. Now, this is an exciting time, I have to say, to be a priest, because there's a heck of a lot of work to do. I mean, anybody who's sitting in a job when they've got nothing to do, it's boring. But to be a priest, well, now is the best time to be a priest, because, you know, there's so much work to be done in the harvest of the Lord. That mission, which, Jesus, you are calling us to achieve or to help out in, is still so rich. And there are still so many people who concretely need a shepherd, who are crying out for somebody to guide them and to help them. Now, priest is a very specific vocation. It's a specific role within the church. But priests are not obviously the only ones, Lord, whom you are calling to help out in this mission. We have to respond, sure, to your call to find priests, but not just priests. Everybody has to lend a hand here. The mission is great, so it's no excuse to just sit back and think, well, this is just for the priests. I can kind of coast along and just wait for somebody to come along with a Roman collar around their neck. No. Everybody has to help out, but in a special way, you're inviting your priests to bring what they can bring, which is the sacraments, to be ministers of the sacraments. So we see, Lord, perhaps in a concrete way, whenever you're looking around and seeing these people who today are like sheep without a shepherd, you're saying these people need the sacraments. And by that, you really mean is that what they need is you. And concretely in the sacraments, in the Eucharist, and possibly even more particularly in confession. And if there are not priests to go into the harvest to bring these two amazing things, then how are people going to meet you in this particular way? So we have to pray hard that there will be laborers for this harvest. What Jesus says in the Gospel of Matthew is ekbale, which is a Greek word which means, yes, to send out, but it literally means to throw outwards, ekbalo. The word ballistic, you think of when somebody goes ballistic, they blow up, or a ballistic missile which kind of explodes and goes everywhere. It's the same root. It means to fire out there, to get out there. And that gives us a sense of the intensity of this prayer, that we have to not just pray, Lord, that you will send out laborers, but get them out there, because there's so much work to do, kind of in a ballistic kind of a way. So the intensity of your prayer, Jesus, really strikes us. So what are we praying for? We're praying that young guys will have the courage to rise up and to respond to your call, but also that we priests will go out with excitement, get stuck into all of the work that has to be done. Now, we're thinking also in these days of you, Mother, and the work that you are calling us to do, and the work that you're preparing us to do. And when I think of the farm, I think also of my grandmother, of how she prepared for everything in the background by keeping us well fed and keeping us in good cheer, looking after us. This is your role, Mother, too, when it comes to praying for workers for the harvest. Mother, we want you to have this prominent role at this time to encourage us to pray for more priests and to nourish the priests that we have in order to strengthen them for the mission. Throw us out into your service, Lord Jesus. And throw us out also with the prayer and the support of your mother in these days to comfort us and nourish us. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections and inspirations that you have communicated to me during this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.